2, 3.
Hello and welcome back to Mixing Music. I'm your host Dee Kei, and today I have a very special guest for this mix breakdown, my friend Aries the Wave. How you doing, Aries?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
Doing so good. Okay, so today we're breaking down a mix, and this mix is super fun because you wrote it, but I'm also on it. Yay! So never have I ever done a mix breakdown on a song that I have helped write. So you wrote this song on guitar, came up with almost all, at least for you did all of your verse, came up with most of the hook. I just did my own verse on it. And we even, you even wrote the chords out, and then I kind of like produced it a little bit and did a verse on it. So this is a fun collab song.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so give me an idea of where you were standing as far as during the songwriting. Like, what is this song to you?
To me, it's an outward expression of my feelings and emotions towards people who are close to me, and
okay, so kind of like giving them a support, like kind of I'm here to protect you kind of a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So we're going to play back about 15, 20 seconds of part of the song, unmixed, and then we're going to listen to the song mixed.
All right, sounds good.
Girl, look at what we made. Don't let it go to waste. Memories we can't replace. I've been on the move, 6 feet to the top, swerving through the pain, give it all I got. Throw it in the bag, spend it all on you. Catch me in the sky, got a bird's eye view. Keeping you close, yeah. Keep it on the low, yeah. Everything I got, put it all on you. Watching from the sky, got a bird's eye view. Girl, look at what we made. Don't let it go to waste. Memories we can't replace. I've been on the move, 6 feet to the top, swerving through the pain, give it all I got. Throw it in the bag, spend it all on you. Catch me in the sky, got a bird's eye view. Keeping you close, yeah. Keep it on the low, yeah. Everything I got, put it all on you. Watching from the sky, got a bird's eye view.
All right, sweet song, cool song. I'm a big fan of this song. Well, I am also kind of biased. And this one is another one of those no mix songs. I call it no mix, and the difference between a rough mix and a no mix is that a no mix is before I even started mixing. This is like directly as it was tracked in, while we're still producing, and then and then afterwards is the mixed version where everything is totally mixed down and limited, etc., etc. I tried to match the volume pretty evenly, although one is obviously a little bit more compressed than the other. But other than those little detailed things, what did you think? What did you hear?
The biggest thing that stood out to me was the fact that in the second one, the one that you mixed, it's the beats and like the background instruments seem to complement our voices more, and it didn't seem like just a bunch of random noises in the background, you know. Mm-hmm. But it went, like with the song more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. So, I mean, obviously the vocals are louder. I think that's one way of saying it. And yeah, I do believe that it was in the no mix. The vocals were crowded with everything else, and then I brought it out. I brought out the vocals with masking frequencies as well as just turning the volume of the vocal up. Sweet. Mm-hmm. So you like that vibe. You like the vocals sticking out there.
I do, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because then we can hear what the heck you're saying. Sweet. Let's play another 30 seconds here and talk about that.
All right.
Keep you close, keep you safe, mama. Ain't nobody gonna take you away, mama. Always fighting for my rights, what you say, mama. Never failing, always praying, keep you safe from drama. Keeping you close, yeah. Got you wanting more, yeah. Never been so sure, yeah. Never been so close, yeah. We keep you close, keep you safe, mama. Ain't nobody gonna take you away, mama. Always fighting for my rights, what you say, mama. Never failing, always praying, keep you safe from drama. Keeping you close, yeah. Got you wanting more, yeah. Never been so sure, yeah. Never been so close, yeah. We keep
All right. For those who kind of guessed, that was a part of my verse there. Yes, I am the higher voice, obviously. You can hear from my talking voice. My wife has a lower talking voice than I do, I think. But yeah, do you have any questions, Aries?
Yeah, I actually really wanted to know, as I was watching you mix this one, I saw you were messing around a lot with the different frequencies, and I just wanted to know, like, where do you even start when you think about equalizing, like, you know?
Yeah, stuff like this.
Uh-huh.
So I kind of like to figure out where I don't. It's also kind of, this is strange because it's kind of become second nature for me. But I really feel, and I feel like as you start mixing as well, as people start mixing, they kind of get this feeling a little bit better. I kind of feel where things are supposed to go frequency wise. And like, for example, the hi-hat's supposed to take up this space, the vocals take up this space. And obviously there's natural frequencies in which vocals usually take up. Like, that's different for everybody. And depending on how their voice, the vocal cords, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I don't know. I think I first start off with the track. Usually I mute the vocals. I start off with the track. Sometimes I do the vocals very, very first before I even do any of that, soloed by itself. And then I go into the track and I usually work with the kick drum first and kind of, make it bump a little bit. And then I do a little bit of bass enhancing. The bass and kick drum is like the only instruments that I really boost the low end for. Usually I cut a lot of low end on a lot of stuff. And usually I cut a lot more than I boost in general. So that means I usually take away frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you're talking about is when we were working on the vocals and I was doing these super high Q, like these really thin, like sweeps where it like, it squeaks almost. You can like hear it squeaks and then I cut out that squeaking frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm just doing a little bit of sweeps and I'm cutting out those little whistle frequencies, trying to get rid of those. And yeah, it's mostly just a lot of feel as far as general EQ. There's no super specific technique that I used.
Mm-hmm.
I cut away the bad frequencies and I added the good frequencies. And I also was thinking about how everything is going to fit together as well. So I feel like a lot of like beginning mixers kind of will enhance the instrument the way that it's supposed to be as if it were soloed, but they kind of forget that that it's a part of a big thing. So I mix things and I change the frequency so they complement each other rather than making one thing sound good by itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if I were to solo something, it might sound a little bit thin, but then in the mix, it doesn't sound thin,
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of what I'm doing over there. Hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, definitely.
And we did it, and to be honest, EQ was pretty minimal on this song as well.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the samples that we used from Machine. And mostly it was just volume automation. Like the hi-hats are way loud in the no mix, and that's just how they came out. And, when I'm producing or just listening to a track, I'm like not really thinking about the mix. I've kind of learned to balance thinking about the mix versus just enjoying music. And when we were writing this song and producing it, I was literally just enjoying the music. So I wasn't even thinking about the mix.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I started mixing it in the mix mindset, I was like, oh, the hi-hat's way too loud. And, things need to be brighter and things need to be less, But, yeah, no, I'm just really happy with the way that it turned out as a whole.
Yeah, I am too.
So I have to ask you, Aries, what are some things that the song turned out to be, especially mix-wise, that you think that I exceeded expectations or like was really good, that really changed the song for you? Although basically, it wasn't literally changed like for the production-wise, but the mix. Like, how did the mix change and enhance this song for you in general?
Well, to be honest, when I first came in here, I kind of had my, my thoughts about what my song could be. And then when we started adding different sounds and different components, it seemed like it was almost a little bit too much for my style. But then as I saw you, doing your magic, mixing and making all the sounds work together in harmony, I saw like the beauty of the song, and it actually really came out to be exactly the vibe I was going for. So
yeah, that's actually a really good point here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have a professor that once told me mixing is kind of like a magician, where you have lots of instruments and you have lots of tracks, But the true magic of that a magician uses isn't that he shows all of his tricks at once, is that he distracts you with one hand while he does the magic with the other. And then he switches. Then he distracts you with the other hand while he does the magic with the other, right? So you distract and entertain, and there's like this cycle of where you're distracting from and where you're entertaining from. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And in the mix is the same thing. Like, I think that with the mix, it's fun to automate levels and to produce in a way that you take parts out, arrange the music so things feel like not everything's playing all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not everything shouldn't be playing. Not everything has to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually think this is a really good point that you brought up, because I hear from a lot of beginner mixes that they raise the volume up so everything is heard, and then they leave the faders. They leave the volume like that. And first off, I think leaving the volume is okay. Like, not doing automations is okay if the arrangement is done really, really well. But I don't believe everything should be heard all the time. I think that if there's a couple different synths taking up the same place, then some instruments, some tracks are meant to be more supportive.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're talking about, is that we were adding tons of tracks, tons of sounds. And when I was mixing it, I started not deleting tracks, but I started turning them down where they were more felt than heard.
Yeah.
And that made it not feel more minimal, but it still felt really full, but it didn't feel overwhelming as you first experienced,
definitely.
right? So I think that's what you're talking about. And a lot of that, if the arrangement can be approved upon as a mixing engineer, it is, your responsibility, maybe not responsibility, but it's your sound, it's your choice. It's one of your tools, one of your paintbrushes, I would say, to use automation to the fullest. Like, use it really well and really sculpt the song with automation, like presenting something and distracting with the other, bringing a track down for a moment so something else can shine, and then bringing it back up while bringing something else down, and not everything needs to be playing all the time. And that's the beauty and the fun of sculpting a mix. Anyway, thanks so much for chatting with me, Aries. So tell me where we can find this song.
It's on all major platforms, Spotify, iTunes.
And what's your artist name?
It's Aries the Wave.
Aries the Wave. All right. Do you have an Instagram handle?
That is it.
Aries the Wave. Okay, cool. You find it on Spotify, iTunes, Aries the Wave, featuring your man Dee Kei. And check it out now. Thank you so much for listening. You have been listening to Mixing Music. You can find my Instagram and ask me any questions. You can email me and literally send me an MP3 of a demo mix that you have, and I would love to give you some feedback. And please, thank you so much to everyone that has left a 5-star review. These reviews have been so wonderful, so great, and I'm just so happy to read every single one of them. They mean so much. Apple does consider, specifically Apple does consider the ranking of a podcast based on their high ratings. So please, please, please leave a 5-star rating and review. It really does help me a lot. And if you know a friend that's kind of getting started in music, or have been doing it for a while, that you think would appreciate this podcast, feel free to share with them. Thank you so much. Keep hustling, keep working hard, make the best music that you can, and stay saucy.
1, 2, 3.
This episode of Mixing Music with Dee Kei has been brought to you by LaunchPod Media. If you want to start a podcast, make sure to start it right with LaunchPod Media.